Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Wednesday, September 20th, 2023. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. A huge case out of Louisiana. Baton Rouge cops are accused of illegally strip searching, torturing, and assaulting people in the narcotics processing facility dubbed Brave Cave. 2 people have filed a federal lawsuit. One of the attorneys will be here to give us details. During a high-speed chase, an Arkansas state trooper performs a pit maneuver on the wrong vehicle. Instead of facing the consequences of the investigation, he's allowed to retire. The Kentucky gubernatorial race is getting heated. Governor Andy Beshear dropped an ad today that his Republican opponent, David Cameron, could not ignore. You know, the black guy who did nothing in the Breonna Taylor case? That black guy, Republican Cameron? Yeah, it's time to send him to a defeat. Also, I have a highlight video from the 10th annual Cedric the Entertainer Celebrity Golf Classic. Plus, I'll be talking to one of the candidates running for president of Libera, Alex Cumming, a former Coca-Cola executive who's challenging President George Weah in the October 10th election. It is time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
A federal lawsuit claims the Louisiana Police Department has a torture warehouse where cops often detain suspects. This warehouse has been dubbed the Brave Cave. It is an unmarked Baton Rouge police facility where the city's street crimes unit allegedly detains, assaults, and invasively strip and body cavity searches people. Joining me now is attorney Ryan Thompson, who filed this lawsuit on behalf of his clients. Ryan, glad to have you here. This sounds reminiscent to the Holman facility in Chicago. To your knowledge, how long has this been open?
Well, first, I want to say thank you, Elder, for having me on the show today, for bringing some attention to what's going on here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's exactly what prompted me to, what raised my antennas was the whole Holman situation. I'd heard about Holman several years ago, and when I saw what was going on here, it was reminiscent of that. To answer your question, it appears as if this has been going on for at least 2 years, to my knowledge. There was a press conference that was held by the Baton Rouge Police Department that said they've been using this facility for decades, that there were some upwards of 650 people last year that were taken to the Brave Caves, and there was, at the point of the interview of the press conference, there was 350 people that were taken to the Brave Cave. So we're probably talking thousands of people who have been taken to this unaddressed facility.
And what type of activities do you and your clients allege actually takes place there?
So we've conducted over 20 interviews, and the activities that range from strip searches, visual body cavity searches. The first petition of which you're referencing, my client Jeremy Lee, was viciously beaten, gang style, by several different officers. And the last petition that you're referencing, the most recent filed lawsuit with my client, who was a grandmother, 47-year-old grandmother, she was illegally detained, illegally searched, and there was a body camera performed on her, where she was required to spread certain body parts. Because my mother's watching, I won't actually say what she was required to do, but just know that they were private parts, both front and back.
So I'm confused, because is this a separate place than the jail?
So according to the police reports that myself and Attorney Jessica Hawkins reviewed, it lists the individuals. It says that the individuals were taken to the first district, the Baton Rouge police facility, which is off of Plain Road. However, in talking to individuals my client and other individuals, it was clear that they were not taken to the first precinct. In fact, we filed a subpoena looking for the video images of the alleged beating that took place with Jeremy Lee. We were told there were none. It wasn't until an individual reached out to me that I was still that I'm going to not say who it was, but that shared with me that I had it wrong, that there was actually a facility in the back of the first precinct whereby individuals were taking that was being dubbed the Brave Cave. So no, it is not a address place where the Baton Rouge Police Department identifies in their police reports. In fact, it's the complete opposite.
Any response from the Baton Rouge mayor, city council, police chief?
So there was a press conference that was held first whereby the police chief and his deputy chief came out and stated that they had never heard of the Brave Cave, but that they were aware of this individual site. Subsequently, after we raised some stink about it, the mayor turned around and did her own press conference whereby she stated that she was going to permanently close this facility and that the street crimes unit would be suspended. I have not heard from them since. It's my understanding that the chief has conducted several different interviews whereby he has stated that there's a criminal investigation that is ongoing right now and that the FBI is involved.
This right here is the mayor of Baton Rouge, Sharon Weston Broom.
In an effort to keep the lines of communication open on this very serious matter that has taken place this week, I've asked you all to come and hear personally from me a statement. More importantly, to keep our citizens of this community engaged and knowing that the mayor is in control of this situation as we work together with BRPD. I have to say that the recent developments related to the allegations of abuse and misconduct concerning the utilization of the Narcotics Processing Center, known as or referred to as the Brave Cave, has prompted a thorough review of activities at the facility and the officers and unit directly connected to it. As a result of early findings and information provided by Chief Paul, we have made the decision that the facility will remain closed permanently. Let me repeat that. This facility will remain closed permanently, and it will not be used for policing activities going forward. Additionally, Chief Paul has terminated the operations of the Street Crimes Unit. The personnel has been reassigned to uniform patrol until the completion of the investigation. Lastly, an ongoing investigation has yielded enough disturbing details to formally announce that Chief Paul has initiated a criminal investigation related to the handling of the suspects and the policing activities of this unit. Let me say to the citizens of Baton Rouge, since 2017, my administration and Chief Paul have worked painstakingly to improve the relationship between the police and our community. We have come too far to have this relationship eroded by a few bad actors. I do believe in the good men and women of the Baton Rouge Police Department and won't let this deter the efforts to have the respectful and harmonious relationship with our community, which we all desire. To the citizens of Baton Rouge, let me make this extremely clear. You are my priority, and any injustices is my top priority. We will handle this matter with transparency, accountability, and fairness.
I don't think that type of news conference is held, Ryan, and they will say nothing bad happened? Like, that's a whole lot to say we gonna change if everything was on the up and up.
You know what, Brother Martin, Elder Martin, let me say this. It's been a while since I've seen that interview. Let's start here. 2 years ago, there was a juvenile that made national attention who was strip searched on national television by Troy Lawrence Jr. We've maintained that the department has always had a policy of not stop and frisk, but stop and strip. And so there is a written policy in the Baton Rouge Police Department that states that all you need is reasonable suspicion to strip search someone. That is not in compliance with the United States Constitution. It's as if individuals are not citizens. African Americans are not citizens in this country. And so to answer your question, I agree with you. It sounds like there's kind of some dancing around the issue. And the issue here is that we have criminal activity that is happening at the Brave Cave, whereby African American citizens, Baton Rouge citizens, rights have been violated. This is criminal activity, and individuals need to be arrested right now. The comment where she states that there's some disturbing evidence and there's a criminal investigation that is taking place, I think that is telltale exactly what we have going on here, again, which is criminal activity, unconstitutional activity.
Yeah, that was quite interesting there. Well, certainly keep us abreast of what happens in Baton Rouge. We'll be following this case through.
We definitely will. Brother Martin, if you allow me to give a shout out to two people, please.
All right, go ahead. Hey,
I want to give a shout out to my mother, Andre Renee Thompson. Mom, I hope you're proud of me. Lastly, to my elder, to my mentor, to my father figure, Dr. Ernie A. Smith, the world-renowned linguist and foremost authority in Ebonics. I know that you're going through some health issues. Please get well soon, and I hope I'm making you proud.
All right. We appreciate it, Doc. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right, going to a break. We come back. We will talk about this with our panel to cover some other news as well. Folks, don't forget, if you're watching YouTube right now, hit the like button, y'all. We should easily be past 1,000 in the first hour. Also, support us in what we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. So you're checking money, order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. As of course, be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available at bookstores nationwide. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, Books A Million. Download your copy on Audible. Folks, we'll be right back.
I'm Faraji Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Next on The Frequency with me, Dee Barnes. Producer, writer, and activist Drew Dixon joins us for an honest conversation about Black women and trauma. Right here on The Frequency on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Hello, I'm Marissa
Mitchell, a news anchor at Fox 5 DC.
Hey, what's up? It's Tammy Roman, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, my panel, Rebecca Carruthers, Vice President, Fair Elections Center out of D.C., Scott Bolden, Aloysius Scott Bolden, attorney, former chair of the National Bar Association, D.C. Chamber of Commerce, D.C., Tarun Walker, founder of Context Media out of Atlanta. And so let me go to the little capper first. So, Scott, you heard all that stuff the mayor said. You don't say all that stuff if you know y'all ain't got a problem. She knows they got a problem.
Yeah, she's got a big problem, and I'm surprised that the police chief is still there. The problem the city has is that these goon squads, you can name them in every city. We've talked about them over the last couple of years or several years. These high crime intensity gang units, they're actually goon squads, and they had a place to take these people, and they had a history of complaints. And the police chief and the sergeants bore down when they got the complaints about strip searches being illegal and what have you. When they got the complaints of young men being strip searched and violated, they actually at a press conference bore down and said, we're going to continue this policy as a crime-fighting piece. That's important because under 42-1983, USC 1983, you've got to be able to show a pattern and practice and a policy of violating individual civil rights. I guarantee you, I haven't looked at the complaint that the lawyer you just had on, but they're going to have to show that this was a policy of the police department. They have video of it being a policy and pattern and practice. And so they're going to get to trial. They're going to beat a motion to dismiss or motion for summary judgment. But disbanding these units, we know in every major city they have them. Disbanding these units is always after the fact. And these units act as criminals to fight criminals on the street. That's un-American. That's unconstitutional. The police have got to be above board and prosecute or investigate and make arrests lawfully in order for these cases to stick. You don't fight crime with crime. And that's what you have going on here in Baton Rouge.
You know, the point Tarun Scott's making there, I mean, we know a lot of these units, they operate like gangs. We know the literal, police gangs in Los Angeles County with these sheriff's officers, how they got their own tattoos. I think it was a television show, it was on Crackle, I think, that literally told the story of these gangs. And so these folks sort of operate with their own code of conduct, their own rules, and the police department has allowed them to rule with impunity.
You know, like the brother just said, every city has a unit like this, and every city has a police unit that is guilty of crimes like this. In Atlanta, there used to be a notorious police unit called the Red Dogs. If you remember back in the early days of hip-hop, Goody Mob on Dirty South talked about them kicking in doors and putting people on the ground and violating them, this sort of thing. And honestly, what this reminds me of, it almost seems like a throwback to slavery where the black body could be taken advantage of and violated in any way by a slave master or an overseer, and you had absolutely no recourse. What's sickening about this is the fact that we're not looking at the sexual component of this. These men and some women were not taken off the street and just having their civil rights violated because of their lack of movement. They were physically violated. As to the lawyer said, to your guest said earlier, you know, their hands were placed in the police hands were placed in places that were private to these people. And what did we talk about? And what did we hear about any sort of like success rate, whether they were actually finding anything on the people they picked up? It seems like they were just finding black people on the street, snatching them up and violating them because they knew that these people had no recourse to push back. And the other sad thing about this is black faces are in front of this sort of situation. You know, you have a black woman mayor who has to get out in front of this and almost make excuses for these police and have to give the public a very political sounding answer without getting to the real bottom of what this is going to end up in. I think it's horrific. I think it's disgusting.
Rebecca.
I had a president of a police union tell me that law enforcement It's the only profession in the world that's expected to be 100% perfect 100% of the time. And my pushback to him was, we don't need law enforcement to be 100% perfect 100% of the time. We need law enforcement not to violate civil rights. We need law enforcement not to beat people and kill people. We need law enforcement not to sexually assault people and call that, oh, well, that's a search. Like, just because Baton Rouge is getting rid of this Brave Cave, that's not enough, because it's going to continue to push more things like this underground. And something that law enforcement needs to ask itself, what is it about law enforcement where these things continue to happen? It's no longer acceptable or probable that this is only a few bad people or a few bad apples. It seems like law enforcement is rotted to the core in this country.
Well, I'll say we probably also want to have 100% job well done when it comes to doctors. We ain't trying to hear, hey, we good at 80%. No, that ain't quite the number we looking for. So yeah, we don't expect cops to beat people, to assault people, to rape people, to break laws, because it's called protect and serve. And that's what we actually thought it was supposed to be. All right, y'all, going to a break. When we come back, we'll talk about an Arkansas trooper quitting his job. Well, he screwed up. Of course, we'll talk about that. Then also, the interim president at Temple University on stage yesterday, slumps in her chair, she passes away. Also, a devastating ad out of Kentucky where Democrat Andy Beshear is going right at Republican Daniel Cameron over the issue of abortion. All of that next, right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach. And on the next Get Wealthy, you'll meet Jandy Turner, who took her love of sports, expanded her network, and created a thriving business.
I settled on developing a golf event planning business, which in and of itself has been very viable for me. One of the things that I've learned from producing hundreds, if not thousands, of golf tournaments is that business gets done on the golf course.
All on The Next Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kim Coles.
Hey, I'm Donnie Simpson.
Yo, it's your man Deion Cole from Blackish, and you watch
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, let's go to Arkansas. Crazy story. You might remember us telling you about this particular story. Where an Arkansas State trooper is retiring before facing any disciplinary action for performing a pit maneuver on the wrong vehicle during a high-speed chase. This took place on September 10th. Corporal Thomas Hubbard and other Arkansas State police officers chased two vehicles, you see right here, chased two vehicles down I-40 while traveling more than 100 miles an hour. During the chase, Hubbard mistakenly performed a pit maneuver on a vehicle that wasn't involved in the pursuit. Police say the vehicle being pursued and the car accidentally stopped were white four-door sedans. According to reports, neither the driver nor the passenger were injured and declined medical treatment. A 14-year veteran, Hubbard submitted his retirement letter after the internal review began. You know what? I'm a firm believer here, Rebecca. I don't believe I believe that these rules should be changed. If there's a pending investigation, an officer should not be allowed to retire with their full benefits.
Absolutely. We need to start thinking about what does it look like to restructure pensions. Oftentimes, we'll hear about reforms in the actual police department, but then we hear the police unions who are then anti-reform. A challenge to police unions: if you support law enforcement, then you should support us progressing and looking at ways to make law enforcement safer, not just for officers, but for everyone. And I think cities need to go back and think about the contracts that they have structured with law enforcement. MLK, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King told us that budgets are a moral document. So inside these municipalities that spend so much money, millions and millions of dollars on law enforcement in their particular cities, they need to go back to the table and restructure some of those contract agreements with law enforcement agencies.
Taron.
You know, I think police departments and police officers need to start looking at this idea of bonding police officers the same way that private security gets bonded. And if your conduct affects the bottom line of the city, then your pension and your bond need to be tied to that, and it needs to be taken from that. Any compensation that you do as a police officer that's seen as unbecoming, that needs to be taken from you. Because, you know, look, this is basically just shuffling the problem around. If you have a bad officer, you have an officer that takes somebody's life or risks somebody's life like this, you can allow them to retire. They get their full pension, or they get shuffled around to different departments to get picked up, and they create the same problem somewhere else. Unless you start putting a financial punishment to some of these practices, nothing's really going to change.
Scott?
Yeah, I know, Roland, that's how you feel. You want to make them stay at work and take the penalty, but you're wrong again on this one, at least legally.
Why?
That's for I'm getting ready to tell you.
Well, hurry up.
Listen to my professorial response.
Well, hurry up.
Is that it would arguably be forced labor. What you really mean is they should let the investigation go forward, make the findings against their record, and if they want to come back into law enforcement, that'll be part of their record so that they cannot be hired or promoted.
No, that's not what I mean.
The department. That's better because that's legal. What you want is illegal.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Why is it illegal?
Force someone to continue to be employed by a police department or any other organization if they don't want to be employed. They have a right to be free of that employment piece, and they can resign anytime.
I don't want.
Forced labor.
What I do not want. I'm tired of these cops getting off scot-free. This happens in Chicago all the time.
Yeah, it does. And I understand your frustration.
And I don't want them getting off scot-free. I also believe that their pensions should be dinged. I do not believe, I'm a fundamental believer that I'm sick and tired of the city or the county putting the bills. It's time for these people.
You cannot stop them from retiring.
Well, fine. Get your ass out the building. What you're not going to do, get your ass out the building. What you're not going to do is keep getting your full retirement.
Say what? Oh, affect their retirement? You could do that?
That should happen.
You could do that. Fair enough.
That should happen. That should happen.
Get the state legislatures, Democrat and Republican, in red or blue states to do it. They'll never get it to be done because the police unions are far too strong.
Or change them. When you negotiate the new contracts, put it in there. And say, and tell them, you want that 20% raise? You got to agree to this. Let's see what happens. All right, y'all, let's talk about this ad. Dropped in Kentucky today, Andy Beshear is a Democratic governor. And the issue of abortion rights is a huge one. It played a huge role in 2022 midterm elections. It's going to be huge next year as well. He's facing Attorney General Daniel Cameron, hard right Republican. Beshear ain't playing around. Watch this ad that he dropped.
I was raped by my stepfather after years of sexual abuse. I was 12. Anyone who believes there should be no exceptions for rape and incest could never understand what it's like to stand in my shoes. This is to you, Daniel Cameron. To tell a 12-year-old girl she must have the baby of her stepfather who raped her is unthinkable. I'm speaking out because women and girls need to have options. Daniel Cameron would give us none.
Ooh, Daniel Cameron is not happy. This is how he responded.
It's unfortunate, but Andy Beshear is running the most despicable campaign in Kentucky history. Now, he lectures us on partisanship and unity, then runs disgusting false attacks. I've said if the legislature were to bring me a bill with exceptions, I would sign it. Now, contrast that to Andy Beshear, an extremist whose record in public office is clear. He supports abortion through the 9th month. His policies are what they have in North Korea and China. He even vetoed a bill requiring medical care for infants born alive after a failed abortion. Andy vetoed every pro-life bill he saw because Planned Parenthood and Joe Biden said too. Now, there's an extremist in this race, and it is Andy Beshear.
Okay, so here's the deal here, y'all. Daniel Cameron is changing his tune. Oh, he was a very hardcore abortion, an anti-abortion candidate. Y'all notice that Donald Trump has been talking lately about how, damn, we might have gone too far because we're losing. Republicans are now realizing, damn, those no exception bills are not good. So Cameron goes, if they send me a bill with exceptions, I'll sign it. But here's the question, Rebecca. Why isn't he saying, this is what I advocate? See, he's trying to play both ends from the middle. We see what you're doing, Daniel Cameron, and you're full of crap.
Well, how is he pro-life? Like, show me where he was pro-life with Breonna Taylor. Show me those who are held accountable because of Breonna Taylor's death. I mean, I'll wait. Like, he literally could have done something in Breonna Taylor's case, and he did not. So I don't think he has a credible record in what it means to actually be pro-life. And I will say this to the Democrat in the race, good job for actually punching back and not holding any punches. This is the type of messaging that voters need to hear so they understand actually what these issues mean. Because for far too long, we've seen certain politicians in this country not be held accountable for their rhetoric. But in this case, Craig's rhetoric is actually dangerous because he has a legislature in his current composition that would not provide exceptions for rape and incest. So it's very disingenuous for him to say, oh, well, if the state legislature send this to me, when we know absolutely the Kentucky state legislature wouldn't send that to him if he was elected to be the next governor. So good for Beshear's team.
The thing that's interesting here, Scott, this is this right here is the Louisville Public Media. Go to my iPad. So they write that Cameron has repeatedly said he supports Kentucky's near total trigger ban on abortion as it currently stands. You go through this here, and then they go, oh, with this new comment, he actually is taking a position that's far different than what he described in the Republican primary. Come on, player, we see what you're doing.
Yeah, the record is pretty clear on Cameron. You know, when these conservative right-wing positions, when they're policy and popular in primaries, look at that alliteration, man. In any event, when you have that, the best response...
It wasn't that impressive, but go ahead.
There was alliteration. I know you're an English major, journalism major. But in any event, but the best response to those far-right extreme policies is to make it personal. And what the Democratic governor did in Kentucky was say, oh, that's your policy? Okay, let's hear from someone who's lived it with that Kentucky twang and that Kentucky simplicity of appearance and her courage in saying her father raped her and she was pregnant. You can't, no policy is powerful enough to respond to that personal circumstance of that young lady. Black, white, yellow, brown. It's all captured us and said, my goodness, why would you make her have that baby? And she's talking to every white woman in Kentucky, every white girl, every black or brown woman or girl about that situation that they may find themselves in. It's powerful, and it ought to scare the conservatives, even in Kentucky.
And look, we've seen it in all these other states to run. These Republicans are freaking the hell out because the abortion rights issue after the Dobbs decision continues to be potent at the box, at the ballot box.
You know, I want to talk about this just from a marketing standpoint, and I just want to say that Beshear's ad was brilliant. And you and me have talked about this before, Roland, that a lot of times the Democrat messaging is too milquetoast, and a lot of times it doesn't get to the core of an issue. I think it was brilliant for Beshear to have this young woman who looks like she looks talking about what happened to her, talking to her about her violation, and tying that right into Cameron's policies. Because this is how you get messaging across. You know, data is one thing. Issues are one thing, but nothing can beat a woman or a man talking about the violation that happened to them and the dramatic human effects of something that happened to them. And it's kind of funny seeing Cameron's response, because how you gonna be black and have just a dry backdrop like that with no flavor behind it? That was corny, man.
Ashy.
I mean,
he looked ashy.
I didn't want to say it, but I'm just saying, like, I mean, come on, brother. I mean, you ain't got no flavor better than this. You got a great background. You sitting here talking like you doing an interview and stuff. Come on, man. But to be serious though, the bottom line is, if you're going to stand on these policies, just as a man and as a candidate, you better be sure you got to back your policies all the way, because the minute you start flip-flopping and looking wishy-washy, it's going to make you look weak. And regardless of, and the bottom line is, you are a black man in Kentucky. They have found this attractive white woman to say that I was violated on your watch. That's going to play like hell in Kentucky. Now, the brilliant thing to go from here was to reach out to Breonna Taylor's family and maybe do an ad with her. That'll kill it as far as like for his constituency.
Well, first of all, speaking of Breonna Taylor, the group Until Freedom, which played a huge role in that particular case, they are actually they've set up shop in Kentucky. They have been very much involved there. Cedric office there. Tamika Mallory has made it clear they will do all they can to defeat Daniel Cameron. Now, since they got there, Tamika has faced significant death threats, literally phone calls to their hotel. Go to the graphic, please. This was posted right here because she posted something earlier on social media on Sunday. We shared it on Monday. Update on the security situation here in Kentucky. Multiple death threats have been made to hotels in the city towards me directly. Police met with me yesterday afternoon and again late last night. The calls later at night were more than personal. It appears to be someone who followed us. I am safe. I have security. I truly believe I will be okay. Sharing so these cowards know our world army is aware and on guard. We won't leave Kentucky without doing the job we came for. They can threaten me, they can try to scare us away, but I'm not backing down. Please support Until Freedom so we can have the proper protections. www.untilfreedom.com. Even $10 will help. Vote for Breonna. #StopCameron, period. That right there sounds like some folks are kind of scared of the mobilization organization of Until Freedom there in Kentucky. Scott?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tamika's a fearsome fighter, and threats aren't going to stop her. She's a sister from New York and just a really strong young leader. And so we ought to all be writing checks or giving to Until Freedom. But more importantly, them being on the ground means that these third-party groups, right, that you advocate for us giving money to, who will affect voting rights, who will affect get out the vote, voter education, voter participation, is where the real action is. And she's in the thick of it with her people. So hats off to her. Full applause for her, and stopping Cameron is period and full stop. So, God bless her.
I mean, this right here, Rebecca, to Scott's point, why I keep saying that. I mean, the reality is, if you're giving money to Until Freedom, if you're giving money to Repairs of the Breach, the Pro People's Campaign, if you're giving money to Black Voters Matter, if you're giving money to Georgia Stand Up and so many others, these are people who literally are on the ground. They're not going to be sitting here wasting their money on TV ads and all that sort of stuff these white Democratic consultants or these other consultants do. They understand we got to go to the voters where they are, and so supporting them in this case, Until Freedom needs people's support for security. Security is very expensive, and these people are literally protecting their lives.
You know, I applaud Tamika Mallory and her courageousness, and I'm keeping her foot on the gas when it comes to seeking justice for Breonna Taylor and holding Cameron accountable. But yes, you know, I know there's a lot of people, even a lot of Roland Martin Unfiltered audience members who feel cynical at times when it comes to our political system and to our political parties. And like you said, giving directly to the boots on the ground who are fighting every year for every vote in our community, but not just fighting every year for every vote in our community, but actually fighting for continual progress and positive change in our communities. So those are the types of organizations that are for Black people, run by Black people, and Black people should make sure that we are supporting those organizations.
And Tyrone, the thing is this here, there's a lot of people out there who complain, I wish people were doing this and doing that. You've got people who are there on the front lines who need our support. And what people see here, it's real. It's real when you're there and you literally are leaving your home for 7 weeks to be involved in a campaign. You're on the ground, and you're getting death threats. That ain't just something just to simply just, you know, this ain't no really big deal. People need to understand the reality of what our folks are facing, what activists face out there. And I don't think a lot of people have a full appreciation of the hell they often have to deal with when they're on the road.
Well, you know, I think sometimes, to be fair, if you're actually really doing this work, if you really are grassroots and boots on the ground and putting that work in, sometimes you get so involved in that work that you don't think about the importance of messaging and telling people what your work actually is. And I understand why that is, because, you know, the people who really are dedicated don't think about that sometimes. But I think there has to start becoming an intelligent media component to a lot of organizations who are true organizations doing work and saying, y'all, we want y'all to support us, but this is why we want you to support us. We want you to see what we're doing. We want to see the benefit that we can provide for people who are interested in getting politically active. I think that's part of it as well. That has to start happening too.
Pull the graphic back up. Tell people where they can actually go to give support. First of all, let me do this here. You can their Cash App is $Until Freedom. Cash App is $Until Freedom. And again, if you actually go to, give me 1 second, I'm gonna pull it up here. If you actually go to their website, go to their website, untilfreedom.com. You see right here, go to my iPad, their goal is to get 10,000 people donating $10 a month. It's right there on their website. And again, when you go here, you will see how they have fighting for what we believe in together. And they're standing up, fighting for Breonna Taylor. If you click the donate button, you'll see where you can actually go to donate right here. And so all the information is right there. All right, folks, that's it. We're going to go to the break. I'm going to come back. Our Black and Missing. Also, we're going to talk about the updating on the Ralph Yarl case out of Kansas City. And I told y'all when I wrote my book, White Fear, how the browning of America is making white folks lose their minds. We're going to show you a white man in Nashville losing his damn minds and destroying the fruit stand of a Latino who was just minding his business. Some of these white people losing their minds. Nuts! You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
All change is not growth. Right. But thoughtful change is real good fertilizer. And that's what has been so beneficial to us.
But you also were not afraid of the pivot.
Well, and I'm a Black woman in business. Come on, I don't care how I dress up. I don't care who I'm speaking with. I don't care what part of the world I am in. I still am a Black woman in business. Being afraid of the pivot, being fearful of change is not what got me here. Respectful of change, respectful of pivot, yeah. Fearful, no, no.
Next on The Black Tape with me, Greg Carr. What do Deion Sanders, a lawnmower, and the phenomenon of invisible labor all have in common? They're all now part of, shall we say, a colorful lore at our historically Black colleges and universities. Our Master Educator Roundtable convenes to explain it all as we explore the good, the bad, and the downright ugly of one of Black America's national treasures. That's next on The Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we're going to be talking about common sense. We think that people have it, know how to use it, but it is something that people often have to learn. The truth is, most of us are not born with it, and we need to teach common sense, embrace it, and give it to those who need it most, our kids.
So I always tell teachers to listen out to what conversations the students are having about what they're getting from social media, and then let's get ahead of it and have the appropriate conversations with them.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
Hello, we're the Critter Fixers. I'm Dr. Bernard Hodges.
And I'm Dr. Terrence Ferguson.
And you're tuned in to
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Left his Cumming, California home on August 7th, has not been seen since. The 33-year-old is 5 feet 8 inches tall, weighs 190 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. Corey is also known as Crumb Dread because of his long dreads. Anyone with information about Corey Danieli is urged to call the Fresno County, California Sheriff's Office at 559-600-3111, 559-600-3111. The white Missouri man accused of shooting a black teen who rang the wrong doorbell has pled not guilty in court. 84-year-old Andrew Lester pled that today. He's charged with first-degree assault in an armed criminal action. He claims he shot Ralph Yarl through the door for fear of being robbed. The trial is scheduled to begin on October 7th, 2024. Now, this next story is just absolutely, utterly, shamefully ridiculous. This white man in Nashville, Tennessee, is facing vandalism charges after attacking a roadside fruit vendor. Apparently, David Johnson did not like that Diego Parada, a man of Honduran descent, was running a fruit stand in his neighborhood. So David Johnson chose to be an ass and do this.
Grábalo. ¿Qué pedo con ese man? Sí, grábalo, no te pasa nada. ¿Quién es? Yeah, one moment. Let's go, man. Hey, no problem. Yeah, Move. Yeah, come on. Come on. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Yeah.
They told you couldn't.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Hey, let me show you something else.
Yeah, hey, no touch. No touch. Yeah,
do you see the sign?
No touch.
Get out.
Yeah, no touch.
Llama a la policía.
Yeah, no touch.
Policía.
Llámala tú.
Es una mierda.
This is what these racists do, Toran. This man's minding his own business, not hurting anybody, selling fruit. This guy goes, I don't like you to selling the fruit, so therefore I'm going to destroy your fruit stand.
You know, watching that, first of all, I was actually kind of surprised he got as far as he did, because normally, you know, people in that culture roll kind of deep, but I'll leave that alone. But there's a thing that Representative in Georgia, Renita Shannon, talks about called deputized whiteness, where anybody feels like their white skin gives them the authority to police everybody else's actions. You know, it's just crazy. I think the climate in this country has gotten people like that, and to the name of your book, White Fear. I think there's a definite fear of people being replaced, and they're trying to act out on that fear by whatever action they can take. But I don't see the point of trying to disrupt somebody's livelihood when they're not even bothering you. I mean, that looks like the highway. This guy had to physically stop his truck, get out of his car, get on the highway to take the effort to put the effort into doing that. It looks like it's probably the first exercise he's had in about 15 years. But I'm just sorry that it had to come to the expense of these people.
But here's the deal, though, Rebecca. The sheer presence of this Latino man is what pissed this racist off. How dare you be in my county, in my city? How dare you be in my country? That's really what these idiots are saying.
You know, I saw the folding tables. And I was looking for a folding chair. I was waiting for Diego to grab a folding chair and show that man the business. You know, I hope Diego, by the end of the day, he owns that man's pickup truck, because what that man did was unconscionable. And like what you're stating, the hubris for certain white people in this country thinking that they belong here over everyone else and that they are the ultimate authority and the enforcement in this country. It makes me think back to like cases from the 1700s and the 1800s, even the Dred Scott decision, of whether or not Black people or people of color have actual standing to challenge whiteness. Can they actually show up in court and go up against a white-infused system? Do they have the humanity, the ability to do that? And once again, we see someone right here who deserved a folding chair, you know, FAFO. You know, fortunately, God was smiling upon him, and that didn't happen to him when he pulled up alongside the road. But just the hubris and the gall and the audacity, or like one of my cousins said, the caucasity to think that you have every right to do something like that. I mean, it's simply crazy.
They actually believe, Scott, this is our country and we can do whatever we want.
That's right. Even white privilege with poor white people is strong. But Roland, no toe, no toe. Who knows what no toe means? I don't know what that means in Spanish, but the brother was saying no toe, no toe. But here's the stupidest. This is more stupid than everything everybody said. He's tearing down the fruit stand and throwing it next door, making a bigger mess for this country that he thinks he's protected from this immigrant. He's just making a big mess. And with this video, they reported him, and he's being charged with criminal mischief right now and will be prosecuted. He's going to plead guilty or do something because it's all on video. Look at what he's doing. He's just tossing it next door. So his goal is to disrupt that income and that business. It's not to clean up the side of the highway or to make good on him being, the immigrant being a nuisance. It is to disrupt his business and his money. Think about that, because he just made a bigger mess. So
but remember,
we should watch this on the criminal mischief, him being prosecuted for criminal mischief, which is what he was charged with.
But remember, the Tulsa Race Massacre was about disrupting the business, lynching.
Yeah.
They were pissed off with money being made.
Yeah.
It's just beyond stupid, and I hope he gets hit with damages. As Rebecca said, they take his raggedy redneck truck. Speaking of a redneck. Speaking of a redneck, a South Alabama woman, guess what? She's going to sit her ass in jail for a year for violating her Black neighbor's civil rights. 64-year-old Cheryl Lynn Pileski pled guilty to a criminal violation of the Fair Housing Act in March. Pileski admitted she intentionally targeted her neighbors due to their race in 2019. She hung racially offensive homemade dolls on her Black neighbors' fence to intimidate them and force them to move out of their Ozark neighborhood. Now she gets to move into a new hood. Put on that orange suit. She gets to put on that orange suit. I have no problem with that. Now she get to think about for a whole year how stupid she was, Rebecca.
I'm sorry, I'm still looking at her picture. Her goofy behind thought she was going to intimidate her neighbors by putting some dolls on someone's porch. Like, get out of here. Are you serious?
I'm telling you, like, Scott, these folk, do people now understand why I wrote my book, White Fear?
The melanin in my skin. That's all it is. But what is it about the melanin in my skin that drives white folks crazy? Now, she gonna spend a year in jail because she hates the melanin in her neighbor's skin and the melanin in my skin. It is beyond racism and being trained to be racist. It's just stupidity. It makes no sense. I don't hate white people. Black people don't hate white people. We just want a fair shot, right? We want a fair opportunity, and we want to enjoy the American dream and chase it, right? But you got poor white people who the American dream and their privilege has not produced wealth for them or success, and they blame it on Black people because white conservative politicians tell them it's the black people's fault that you didn't make the American dream work despite your privilege and despite your whiteness. And so she's going to spend a year in jail. Think about this. She's going to spend a year in jail because she hates the melanin in my skin. What could be more stupid here in America or anywhere else? It's just stupid. I don't even get to racism. It's just stupid.
I don't mind it at all. I hope she loses her job. I hope she loses a house. I hope she loses all of that. Because I'm telling y'all, this is what these people do. And these things are, and see, I love the people who say, well, man, you know, you do these stories, but it's really not that big of a deal. No, it's happening all over. I'm trying to download this video here. Neil Hughley posted this video. This white man, I think is in Oregon, who literally is menacing this sister. He is constantly on her door. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Video is saving. Here we go. All right, let me see if I can now transfer this video over. I mean, these things are happening, and these people, I mean, they are literally acting a fool. Okay, here we go. Airdrop it. And I'm gonna show y'all this video here. And again, this is just a black woman who's just trying to live where she lives, and this fool, he decides to just do this constantly. Go hit play.
I'll fucking rape your daughter, bitch. Call the cops, bitch. I'm about to get murdered. That's enslavement without cost. I'm about to get murdered.
So Tehran, this racist threatened to murder her, threatened to rape her daughter. He's brandishing a knife, making stabbing motions. This took place in Gresham, Oregon. This took place over a week. As a matter of fact, it took the cops a week after seeing the video to arrest the guy. Apparently, the woman was told that it's just menacing, so he is going to be released soon. See, this right here, Tehran, is when a group of bros pay a visit.
I was getting ready to say that. You know what, man? I don't know if this lady, does she have any uncles or does she have any brothers? Because I'm telling you right now, if that had been somebody in my family, we'd have got 4 deep and sat in front of the door and waited just for him to show up, and then we're going to open the door, and then we're going to have a conversation. Let's just say it like that. Back to the other point about that is, you know, back to the other point, like that other lady who was attacking that sister, man. I wonder sometimes if people are dealing with some form of self-hate and they feel like because their situation is the way it is, they find somebody who they think is better than them, who they really think is better than them, but they flip it to thinking that there's somebody beneath them, and then they try to attack these people because, look, man, why would you, it's got to be privilege and it's got to be some form of extreme hubris to risk your freedom and your life to try to disrupt somebody's life in that way. Yeah, man, that dude, I don't know what he's on and I don't care what he's on, but that would have got dealt with quick, man, if that would have better been my people. My people from Florida, we don't play that. And
But Rebecca, again, I really believe in their minds, we're going to get away with it because we white.
Right, they're not, in their minds, they're not risking their freedom. They're not disrupting people. In their minds, they're doing what is rightful for them, what they should do. In their minds, it's us, it's the Black people in this country that are in the wrong by simply our presence. I mean, looking at that dude, I'm like, what in the unwashed legs and feet? I mean, I think about my male relatives and my male friends. There is no way. Like that, and here's the other thing. I hope that woman sues, it looks like it was an apartment complex, because at the point that they knew that she was being terrorized by her neighbor, they should have provided ample security. They could have even said that this is against the other tenant's lease by being menacing or criminal activity or mischievous activity. There's something in that lease where they could even, they should be able to even kick them out of that apartment complex. But if I was her, I would definitely be suing as well as filing a complaint with the local police department with why does it take a week to actually respond and do something like this, and I also hope for her sake she moves because it is not safe and she needs to call all of her male relatives over.
I'm telling you, Scott, this is where we got 5 chairs sitting outside his door looking like this here.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I wouldn't really call the police if that happened to me or my sister.
Well, first of all, remember, it's Gresham, Oregon. So her family probably not in Oregon.
Yeah, probably. You're right about that. But I'm telling you, I got some cats. There's always a Black community within 5 miles of where she lived.
Hey, this sister need to throw a hat in the air.
Right.
She need to throw a hat in the air.
Hey, it was my sister. It was my sister. My sister would have opened the door, came out there with her butcher knife or her frying pan and beat his ass. That's what she would have done. She wouldn't have waited on the police. She would, and then what my sister would do is what Rebecca said. She'd sue the complex for failure to keep her safe, for failure to provide sufficient security to keep her free from being threatened by white racists. It's just a trip, man. I'm going to keep saying this, Roland. The melanin in my skin, it make them go crazy, man. It make them go crazy.
They going to get that ass whooped. I'm letting y'all know. All right, y'all. I'm saying, I mean, they keep
You cannot promote violence on this program, and you do it regularly. I've been meaning to tell you that. You promote violence. That's
self-defense.
No, I don't.
That's not violence. That's not violence.
Yes.
No, if you show up to my house doing that and saying that stupid stuff like that, if I open up the door and 5 Rottweilers come out at you, then that's your fault. You shouldn't be that close to my door.
I didn't say you couldn't do that. I just said you couldn't.
Hey, call me so I can do this and put it up on the internet all day and stuff when it happens.
Black people always trying to kick somebody's ass. We got to stop that, man. We got to stop that unless it's ultimately necessary. Unless it's really ultimately, it's a last resort, kicking somebody's ass, man. We gotta get out of that mentality.
Now, what's that? Now look at that lady, man. What is she gonna do when she's sitting in the county and locked up in Big Shirley want to watch a movie? What's she gonna do? She gonna push back on her? What's gonna happen then? Who's she gonna fight?
Well, she gotta keep him. She never should have let him leave the apartment. My sister would have just kept him and tortured his ass.
Nah, that's just crazy.
You would find the evidence anywhere. The evidence. I thought it was Bob in years. Oh God! Here we go.
There we go.
Promoting violence. You wrong about that, Roland.
No, Scott.
You wrong about that.
Promoting violence.
Look here, man.
We're recognizing Black history. We're recognizing Black history. There was a Black man who invented that chair.
Exactly. Every last one of her relatives should have been sitting out in front of her front step when that dude pulled up and be like, "What's up?"
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
They should all come from Atlanta and Detroit and just sit out.
Now, all Black people, if any of y'all got a racist who rolls up on your door like that, call Robert.
Oh, yes.
Call Robert and all the guns that he got. Trust me, you're gonna have some tough white racists who gonna get real meek and quiet real fast. All right, y'all.
He come to Oregon for free. He come to Oregon for free. Travel with guns.
Right. That's going to be road trip. Road trip. All right, y'all. I got to go to a break. We'll be back. Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network. Hashtag team whoop that ass.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys. This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, we're going to be talking about common sense. We think that people have it, know how to use it, but it is something that people often have to learn. The truth is, most of us are not born with it, and we need to teach common sense, embrace it, and give it to those who need it most, our kids.
So I always tell teachers to listen out to what conversations the students are having about what they're getting from social media, and then let's get ahead of it and have the appropriate conversations with them.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
Hey, what's up? It's Tammy Roman.
Hey, it's John Murray, the executive producer of the new Sherry Shepherd Talk Show.
It's me, Sherry Shepherd, and you know what you're watching, Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, y'all. So today, Merrick Garland testified before Congress and all the yahoos on the Republican committee. And so, check out this line of questioning from former Democrat Jeff Van Drew, who I hope he loses next year in his election. Listen to this, and Merrick Garland, who's always quiet, chill, and it looked like his blood pressure is like 90/60. My man got a little hot at these fools. Watch this.
Attorney General, through the chair, I ask you, do you agree that traditional Catholics are violent extremists?
I have no idea what the traditional means here. The idea. Let me just.
That go to church.
May I answer your question?
Yes or no?
The idea that someone with my family background would discriminate against any religion is so outrageous, so absurd.
Mr. Attorney General, it was your FBI that did this. It was your FBI that was sending, and we have the memos, we have the emails, we're sending undercover agents into Catholic churches.
Both I and the director of the FBI have said that we were appalled. Have said that we were appalled by that memo.
So then you agree that they're not extremists?
We were appalled by that memo.
Are they extremists or not, Attorney General?
I think that...
Are they extremists or not, Attorney General?
Everything in that memo is
Are they extremists or not? I'm asking a simple question. Say no if you think that was wrong.
Catholics are not extremists. No.
Was anyone fired for drafting and circulating the anti-Catholic memo?
You have in front of you the inspection division's investigation.
Just tell me yes or no, please.
I don't know.
We have no time.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Do you agree that parents attending school board meetings should be categorized? Should parents that go to school board meetings and are very vocal about their kids' education, should they be classified as domestic terrorists?
Of course not. And my memo made clear that vigorous objections to policies in schools are protected by the First Amendment.
It was sheer stupidity, just back and forth. Eric Swalwell had me cracking up because Jim Jordan was just sitting here, just First of all, I really hate Jim Jordan. He's really an idiot. And so he was up here just yelling, hollering, screaming, doing his usual nonsense. And then Swalwell was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and check this fool because he keeps making demands of who needs to be testifying and who needs to be doing stuff and all those sort of things like that. So here's Swalwell. Check this out, y'all.
Rich, because the guy who's leaving the... Mr. Attorney General, my colleague just said that you should be held in contempt of Congress, and that is quite rich, because the guy who's leaving the hearing room right now, Mr. Jordan, is about 500 days into evading his subpoena. About 500 days. So if we're going to talk about contempt of Congress, let's get real. I mean, are you serious that Jim Jordan, a witness to one of the greatest crimes ever committed in America, a crime where more prosecutions have occurred than any crime committed in America, refuses to help his country, and we're going to get lectured about subpoena compliance and contempt of Congress? Jim Jordan won't even honor a lawful subpoena? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Now,
there's no credibility on that side.
There are a lot of crazy videos that testimony today. But I saw this one, y'all, and Lord, I thought it was one of the most hilarious videos. I know a lot of Republicans. I do. But some of these people really just utterly embarrass a lot of the Republicans who I actually know. If y'all want to see one of the dumbest people, this GOP Rep LaMalfa, if y'all want to see somebody who is not the brightest bulb in a dark room, watch this one.
Know the percentage of atmospheric gases.
You don't know the percent of the atmosphere.
What I can tell you is that climate change is real. We got to do something about it.
Yeah, this one's called autumn, sir. So,
I'm sorry?
This one's called autumn right now, so yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't make out what you said, sir.
This climate change right now is called autumn, yes.
Yeah, that's the seasons changing, which respectively is not the same thing as the climate changing. And as somebody who is hoping to retire in the 2050s and who has kids who will be old enough to ask me as they're getting to their 30s, whether we did enough to deal with climate change or whether we just did what was convenient, I take that really seriously.
Reclaiming my time. Thank you, Mrs. Secretary. The trillions and trillions we're going to cost our kids to chase a tiny percentage of CO2 will bankrupt all of us, and bankrupt our economy, and ship it to China for all the other reasons. So I yield back, Mr.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Huffman.
Mr. Secretary, it's good to see you. You can see that I serve here in Congress with some of the greatest minds of the 19th century. Thank you.
Oh, my God. Whenever they have these hearings, Rebecca, I just sort of sit here and go, my God, do Republican voters watch and go, we voted for some idiots?
It was so painful to watch that, especially because I spent the day with some of the most brilliant minds. Today was the first day of the Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Conference. So I was able to hear from a lot of people who care about policy, who convene in Washington, D.C., who actually care about things, care about facts, and not just looking for the next soundbite. So it's very disappointing to see the people who were elected on Capitol Hill just sit and just have silly time. I mean, you know what? If the Republicans are so big and bad in policy, pass a budget. Avert the government shutdown that's going to happen next week because they can't muster up enough votes. Actually do something. If you're that great, instead of being snarky, talking about, oh, it's autumn now, when technically it's not autumn, so check your calendar, actually do something.
How dumb can you be to run and go, it's autumn? That's climate change. No, that season's changing.
You know what, though? I hate to say it, but things like that play really well to this base. We know it's ridiculous, and it was actually fascinating looking at Pete Buttigieg's, I hope I'm not butchering his name, his reaction, because that answer was so ridiculous that he's almost like he was stupefied by the fact that that even came out of his mouth. But having said that, we know it's ridiculous. You know, we know that it's completely ahistorical and ascientific. But his base is going to eat stuff up like that, stiff stuff like that up, because when you get used to a clown, you expect a circus. And if somebody who's going to play to their base is going to give them snarky sound bites that they can run with, that's the danger in people like that, because people who support people like that are just going to run with those sound bites. And I guarantee you, by the time Friday rolls around, it's going to be all over bumper stickers and T-shirts. That's what's dangerous.
I was, see, Scott, I could not, I'm just letting y'all know, I could not be in Congress. I couldn't. I'm just letting y'all know. I'm just letting y'all know. Because I know I would be like, you got to be the dumbest mother. Look, the only reason I'm holding back cussing, because Renita Shannon, of course, former Georgia State rep, she's a panelist on the show, she sent me a text other day, and she said, my sister said to tell you that my 4-year-old niece loves watching your show because you get turned up. But you are teaching her cuss words she can't use in pre-K. So the only reason I ain't cussing right now, because the 4-year-old is watching me get turned up and learning on the show. But I'm telling you, Scott, I would be cussing colleagues out. I'd be like, you stupid, you dumb, you a simpleton, yo, you just brain dead. I already know. We ain't working on nothing bipartisan, because I would have cussed out the entire House Republican caucus.
Yeah, but Roland, let's level set it, right? You and I both know the dirty little secret of our democracy and the Constitution. There's several, but one is there's no litmus test for education or intellectual quotient. There's no litmus test for not being a racist or a sexist. All you have to do under our democracy, state or federal campaigns, is get one more vote than the next guy. You get one more vote, you're in. And in the House, you represent what? Your district can be as small as 2,000 or 3,000 to up to 50 to 100,000, maybe 250,000.
All congressional districts are 700,000.
Okay, so up to 700,000, right? Okay, now those people vote for people who remind them of themselves or who they like, they want to have a beer with, and they can be, not all, but can be just as dumb, just as ignorant, and just as crazy as the people they vote for, as their constituents. And it does play to their base, but you're expecting too much out of that equation that I just laid out.
No.
So I'm not surprised they got ignorant.
No, but the reality is...
ignorant people represent these districts and stuff.
No, as Rebecca knows this.
What?
No, Rebecca knows. No. The real issue is not the people that voted for him. The greatest block of voters in the country are non-voters. And the reality is, that's the greatest block. And when we allow these idiots to go there, that's who ends up going. And I'm just saying, I just know me. If I was sitting on that panel, my 5 minutes would be used. I'd be like, Attorney General Garland, you could just chill for the next 5 minutes. Because what I'm about to do is cuss these ignorant fools out. I'm just letting you know what will be happening. They'd be banging the gavel. They'll be
That's
sitting.
What I was saying. They'll get mad at you more than anybody. They'll be start banging the gavel.
Hey, dog. They'd be straight from the record, and I'd be like, I'd be going Sam Jackson, Jennifer Lewis. It'd be Mo MFs flying around. I already know me. They'd be in the middle of a news conference. Yo, dumb ass. I'm out telling you what I know. I will be heckling them at their news conference because I cannot stand that level of stupidity. I can't.
Oh, boy.
So when y'all keep asking me, people keep asking me, texting me, people on Instagram, Roland, you run for office. No, I can't run for office. I know me. I'm cussing. I don't like dumb people in organizations I'm in. I hate when stupid people talk. You be sitting there like, her dumb ass asked that question. His simple Simon ass asked that question.
You can't discriminate against people who are not as smart as you. That's the first thing.
Yes, right? I can. I can call dumb and stupid dumb.
But they don't have to. There's no intellectual quotient for running for office.
I know, you're right. That's my point. I have an aversion to dumb people.
I mean,
and I'm just letting you know. Hey,
Lauren Boebert could come to you with some really good legislation on some issue, and you'd have to work with her.
No, I wouldn't.
You can see that if it was very
No, I wouldn't.
And her constituents.
Hell no. Because she probably try to grow.
What good idea?
I knew this was coming. I knew this was coming from my sister. I knew it. Tell me what legislation he could bring to her. She could bring to him.
Please tell me.
Right. Lauren Boebert.
I do it. I asked for it.
Lauren Boebert will become. She'll be coming as to support Hands Across America. That's what she'll be coming to do. That's it. All right. Toe Run, Rebecca and Scott, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Folks, when we come back, one of the candidates running for president of Liberia, he's a former Coca-Cola executive, Alex Cumming. I sat down with him when I went to the country last year. The election is October 10th. Here's what he had to say about the future of the nation founded by formerly enslaved people of African descent 201 years ago. That is next right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All change is not growth.
Right.
But thoughtful change is real good fertilizer. And that's what has been so beneficial to us.
But you also were not afraid of the pivot.
Well, and I'm a black woman in business. Come on, I don't care how I dress up. I don't care who I'm speaking with. I don't care what part of the world I am in. I still am a black woman in business. Being afraid of the pivot, being fearful of change is not what got me here. Respectful of change, respectful of pivot, yeah. Fearful, no, no.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Devon Franklin. It is always a pleasure to be in the house. You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Stay right here.
Well, Alex, it's been a while since I've seen you. Normally it was at Essence Music Festival.
Absolutely, it's been a while. Welcome to Liberia.
Glad to be here, glad to be here. So let's start with that. How long were you at Coca-Cola?
Almost 20 years. I retired in March 2016, 19 and a half years, so almost 20 years. I started at Coca-Cola Nigeria, so I ran Nigeria. I ran all of Africa for Coca-Cola. And then for the last 8 years, Roland, I was Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer. So I had global responsibilities for strategy, human resources, legal, all of the technical functions. So R&D, procurement, manufacturing, even the secret formula, the foundation, Ingrid Sanders Jones worked for me. So I did that until 2016 and retired in March 2016.
Reason I want to start with that, because when we talk about Liberia, we talk about other countries as well. When folks talk about the need for investment, it's what corporations can do in terms of being able to help economies build and grow. You've got Firestone here. They've been here since, 1925, 1926. And one of the things that was interesting to me when I was having conversations with people this week is that they've never actually had a manufacturing facility here. Rubber is taken out, going to the United States, but never had anything here. What is needed from a corporate perspective in order to build economies like Liberia's that go beyond the natural resources being stripped and taken out, but literally providing jobs and skills for folks who live here?
So, Roland, the challenge we've had in Liberia over the history of our country is that we have never focused on building a vibrant private sector. For whatever reasons, people in government have been threatened, I think, either consciously or subconsciously, about having a strong private sector. I think they've always felt it would be a threat to their political control. And so we have not created an environment for a vibrant private sector with manufacturing. We have not demanded of people who come to Liberia to extract our resources that they do some local manufacturing, some value addition. So it's been a combination of not creating the right environment, the rule of law, the sanctity of agreements, the judiciary has to be independent. You have to provide the right incentives. You have to develop and train your people. And you have to be comfortable that you will create strong, powerful, rich business people, right? And then you have to be demanding of the concessionaires. We have to change the model with which people extract our resources. And so we haven't done that. We still are not doing that. And therefore, our resources just leave Liberia and our country is underdeveloped. I keep reminding us, Roland, that we are a rich country and a poor people. That is a huge contradiction. We have gold, we have diamonds, we have rubber, we have arable land, we got 350 kilometers of seafront, of beaches, and yet we're among the poorest countries in the world. So it's a function of leadership. I keep reminding us Liberians, we can't keep doing the same things and expect different results. The government has been organized this way for the beginning of the country. We keep electing people with the same kinds of experiences. We're not going to get different results. So, long answer to your question, we just have not created an environment for a vibrant private sector, and we have not been demanding enough of the concessionaires in terms of what they need to do to add value to our resources before it's taken out of the country.
That was one of the things that the conversation I had with a CEO here. She talked about the lack of skilled workers. She talked about the need for training for folks, if you're in construction, people who've been adequately trained to be carpenters and electricians and drywallers and things along those lines. You also have an extremely young population here. Many folks would be shocked when they hear, the median age of this country under 20 years old.
19, yes. So it's a young country, and you do need to train the workforce. So what that means is,
until they got to be trained for something, though.
Absolutely. but what that means, though, is you have to start with low-skill manufacturing. So you talk about Firestone. Let's at least produce rubber gloves, condoms, very basic stuff. Doesn't require very sophisticated trained people, because that will take time for us to do. Or let's invest in tourism. Tourism, you create a lot of jobs, but they're service-oriented jobs. We can train people very quickly to provide service. I mentioned these 350 kilometers of beaches. There are other natural beauties here. So if we invest in ecotourism.
But in order to get to those beaches, you got to have roads. Because that's one of the things that folks have said to me. It's difficult when the roads only go a certain distance. Now you're adding hours to be able to reach places where it should be really hour and a half, 2-3 hours.
You do, but you have to start somewhere. Right? You have to innovate around the fact that you have bad roads. So I'm making this up as we go, but so maybe you get helicopters or something, and you can courier people from here to Hopper, to Maryland County, beautiful beaches. So we have to be creative and make do until we build the road infrastructure. So we can't wait until that happens before we start. So the point is, we gotta be creative, we gotta be innovative. We can't let the barriers stop us, right? We have to say, okay, the country doesn't have electricity, we don't have trained people, what do we do? And I believe there are solutions. That's why I mentioned ecotourism. When you add the word eco, people are not expecting 5-star infrastructure. They want to rough it out. They want to live in the huts. They want to get on the canoes. And we can offer that until we can build the infrastructure, the roads, etc., and we can take up the value chain of tourism, if you will. So my perspective, Roland, is that there are barriers, there are challenges, but we have to confront them. We have to find solutions around those barriers, and we can't let that stop us from the country moving forward.
When we talk about our responsibility, how we can use our positions, how did you use your position as a corporate leader at Coca-Cola to help Liberia?
So we did it in many ways, but what I first remind Liberians is that Coca-Cola is a private for-profit business, is a big multinational that focuses on creating shareholder value. In that process, there was a strong recognition that you have to invest in the communities and societies where you live and operate. And so the other reality is, in relative terms, Liberia is a very small market. Is in the rounding in terms of what the corporation does. I mean, you know how big. The market cap of Coca-Cola is almost $250 billion. The GDP of Liberia is around $2 billion. I mean, that's the difference in scale. But what we did, for example, when I worked for the corporation, we put a second production line. The market didn't really justify it, but we were anticipating growth, so we put a second production line, which helped to create jobs. We invested in Liberian entrepreneurs, so we created kiosks. We put coolers in place to help. During the Ebola crisis, the company was very active in providing PPEs, in providing support to employees to make sure they were looked after and taken care of. So we disproportionately invested in Liberia relative to its size, relative to returns. And because I had the role I had, I could influence. Even though Liberia is a very small country, very small market, we did significantly more than we would have under normal circumstances, even versus bigger markets in the region. We did more because of my role. But we did that because we could, because we cared for the country. And again, I just remind people there was only so much you could do because, again, you had sort of rules and regulations in terms of how you invest and based on returns and that kind of stuff.
Well, the reason I asked that, you've got 1 million Liberians in the United States. And so what do you want to see Liberians in America do where they're working for companies, where they're working corporations to be able to help the country grow?
Right. So let me also add that there are Liberians also we helped get roles at Coca-Cola globally and other Africans, so not just Liberians. And I don't want to take any credit for it because they earned it. It wasn't because, they were just Liberians. I think that's an important distinction. But Liberians today in the diaspora do a lot to help the country. I think the number is something like $350, $400 million come to our country every year from the diaspora.
So meaning folks who no longer live in Liberia, they're sending back 350, 400 million.
Yes.
So even though your government budget is 700 million, you're getting, people are sending half essentially of your budget.
Right. And so that is significant. I think in relative terms, compared to, I think, Mexico, for example, Philippines, large diaspora populations, on a per capita basis, on a per person basis, Liberians send a lot of money back home to help their friends and relatives. In fact, there's an opportunity to work with them to actually channel that giving, rather than just give to folks, maybe create an investment fund that can be used. We talk about value-added manufacturing. So we need to be creative about how we actually can channel those funds in a way that is more productive, and is that not only to pay the rent, to buy food. Those are important things. Liberians need that, right? But I think we can be smarter about how we channel those resources. So Liberians do help today, and it's important that we acknowledge and recognize that. But the diaspora, I have to say, also needs to get perhaps more engaged in offering solutions. I encourage diasporans to actually come home and help to implement some of the ideas they have. It's not good enough just to criticize, and they do a very good job of that, and maybe deservedly so, right? It helps when you make recommendations. That's kind of the next step in the value chain, if you will. Then we need someone to actually come and let's implement these great suggestions, right, and not just suggest it. But the diasporans do a good job, I think, of trying to help the country, and we need to acknowledge that.
When we talked about that young population, I mean, obviously, young folks are not sitting around waiting. And so is there a fear that if you don't have services, if you don't have jobs, if you don't have skills, that you're going to have a brain drain? And so this is no different than young folks who are leaving rural America going into urban populations. People want to go where the jobs are, where there's a different lifestyle. And so how much of a concern is that brain drain?
It's a huge concern, but there's a bigger concern because this young population is both an opportunity and a threat. And it's actually, I think, is a national security threat if we don't create the opportunities for these young people. The stability of the country over time could be at risk. Brain drain is clearly one of the risks, but the West, Roland, is fighting back, as you know, even the United States, pushing back on immigration. The same with the Europeans. So young people having the opportunity to leave and go to the West is becoming more and more difficult. And this is why we have to create opportunities here, because the West, they don't want us. I mean, let's be honest, right? And it's up to us, Liberians, Africans, to create opportunities for our young people. Otherwise, we have a national security risk if we don't take care of that young population. And my fear is we're not doing that. We're not doing enough to develop, to invest in our young people. We pay lip service to it, but we have to take more action, because over time, folks that's suffering, they're hungry, they don't have a future, they got nothing to lose. And it becomes a national security risk, in addition to the fact that if they can leave, they will leave.
One of the things I consistently have heard from folks, they've talked about where this country was prior to the Civil War, prior to the coup. They talked about what it looked like. They talked about the development and how so much of that was destroyed in that 15-year war. Can you paint the picture? What was Liberia like pre-Civil War? Things that I've read, the reign of Tubman, in terms of what was brought in. What was this country like? Because what many historians have said is that Liberia was far ahead of many other African nations, even though they gained their freedom, and then all of that work was destroyed during those 15 years.
So that is correct. Liberia was, in relative terms, ahead of the other African countries. In fact, when I was based in Nigeria, I had a discussion with at the time, the Kenyan ambassador to Nigeria. And he said, Alex, in the Kenyan Foreign Service, everybody wanted to go to Europe and the US, all that sort of stuff. If you had to have an assignment in Africa, you wanted to go to Liberia. I mean, so that explained where the country was relative to other African countries. In fact, a lot of multinationals who had expats, expatriates in other African countries, when they took their leave, their short breaks, so you had home leave, you went back home, short breaks, they would come to Monrovia, to the beaches and that sort of stuff. So in relative terms, the country was developed. But I have to say, though, the country at the time, although relatively, didn't benefit everybody. And we have to acknowledge that. And that was part of the cause.
Who did it benefit?
It benefited a few of the elites. And that's why the war was precipitated, the civil unrest, because our country has always had a sort of a top-down model. A few people, the old sort of Republican model, you power a few people, a few rich people, and somehow the poor people will develop. That really hasn't happened. So Liberia was... You mean
the trickle-down theory?
The trickle-down theory. And Liberia has had this sort of trickle-down mentality, and still does until today. And so even the government today, when we criticize them, they say, well, it was done that way in the past. Well, it hasn't worked. And they were elected to change the model. They were elected with this pro-poor attitude, and they're repeating the same philosophy. The same with our concession agreements, whether it's a Firestone or ArcelorMittal, the same constructs. And somehow the country hasn't developed. We need to change the model. We need to develop from the bottom up as opposed to the top down. It hasn't worked. And so Liberia was relatively developed. Liberia has a lot of firsts we should be proud of. The origins of what's now the African Union started in Liberia with what was called the Organization of African Unity in Senegal. One of the first head of the World Organization, Dr. Tukba, was a Liberian. I believe, and you should check this for me, I believe the first African to graduate from Harvard was a Liberian. The reason why Liberian has this maritime loss of flag of convenience, I believe, again, Liberian lawyers were involved in writing the laws of the seas. So we've had a lot of firsts. The country was relatively developed, but it never has benefited the majority of Liberian people, and still doesn't today. And this is what we have to change. We have to upend the system. And this is what we're saying to our Liberians, that we can't keep doing the same things and expect different results. Roland, we have to invert the system. Now, that's easier said than done, but we have to do it because Liberians are not, mature Liberians are not benefiting. I was in the western part of our country, a county called Cape Mount, an area called Gold Camp and King Joy, where there's a lot of gold. And literally, Roland, you see the trucks leaving with the gold, and there's no development today. Seriously, there's a part of Liberia called Wiswa. Used to be kind of the diamond capital. Almost all the diamond is gone. I promise you, there's nothing in Wiswa. And this is not about this government, but they're doing the same things, right? This is an inheritance from way before. We gotta upend it. We gotta change the model.
So gold's going out, diamonds going out, timber's going out, ore's going out, and the country, rubber's going out.
The country remains poor. That is just unacceptable. This is my passion, right? And for me, it's not, you know, I'm aspiring to serve our country as president. The job is not the destination, it's a means to end. The destination is to change the country. That's what we need to do, to upend this thing, because it hasn't worked. And it's just a fact. You just said gold, even down, and it's a poor country.
On that point, when I interviewed the Ghanaian president in 2019, he said to me, he said, it makes no sense that the continent with the most resources is also the poorest.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of that is because the West wants it that way, they engineer it that way. You know, all of these multilateral institutions are designed that way. But we Africans have to take responsibility. We own these resources. We need to challenge the order. We need to change the models, and in many cases, we need to work together to do it, because doing it individually, we don't have leverage. So a good example is what Ghana and Ivory Coast have done. Between those two countries, Roland, they control something like 70% of cocoa production. They were addressing cocoa sort of separately. They've come together now, and it's benefited farmers. Prices have gone up because they have leverage when they combine. And so as Africans, individually, we need to exert some leverage, but if we work together, we can exert more leverage and, again, upend the order, reverse the order. This is why ECOWAS, for example, is so important, Economic Community of West African States, because then you got scale in terms of the population. If you want to do manufacturing, because manufacturing is about scale, right? Economies of scale. This is why even the Mano River Union, which is Liberia, Sierra Leone, Guinea, the Ivory Coast, it provides a scale. And if we can collaborate, work together, it gives us more leverage in how we manage our resources. Iron ore in Liberia, iron ore in Guinea, right across the border, the Nima Mountains, right? We need to be collaborating more with the Guineans, right, to extract more value for our resources. So the Ghanaian president was right. We got all the resources, and yet our currencies are weaker than the currencies in the West. Why? And again, I think the responsibility is ours. Yes, the West has engineered, but we can't blame them. We got to blame ourselves. We got to bring leverage to bear to change the model.
right now, 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are African economies. One of the concerns that people have is, and I've heard this from numerous folks, and they were even asking me on my show, the question was asked, are the Chinese in Liberia? Because of the criticism of their investments in other African nations. And one of the things that they also been criticized on is not only are you investing, but they're importing their workers to do the work as opposed to training the very people who live there to do the work. So it's sort of the same thing, taking of resources, but that money going to their own workers. How do you get international investment into Liberia? How do you get someone's attention to say this is a value add for you to actually do this? Whether we're talking about major corporations or even smaller African American owned corporations from the United States.
So let me first react to the point you made about the 7 fastest growing economies in Africa. That's a good thing, but Roland, we shouldn't get carried away with that statistics because this is a relative comparison. These are relatively small economies. So the U.S. only growing 1%. That 1% growth is probably, if we do the math, probably bigger than the entire 7 economies growing because you know the math, right? The size, right? Right. So yes, it's a good thing, and we should be proud of that. I just remind us we should be growing even faster, right? I mean, to catch up because we're so far behind. But in terms of how we attract foreign investors to sort of add value, one is this is where collaboration becomes important with other African countries because, you know, a small country like Liberia alone, you only have so much leverage. So I'll give you a real life example. If the terms we try to extract for iron ore is different from what the Guineans try to extract, they will go to Guinea, right? But if we work together with the Guineans, right, we can. So
basically, what you're talking about is African nations should be doing what OPEC is doing.
Yes.
And that is they're creating when OPEC gets together, they're controlling, they're setting the price of oil.
Right. Now, if you have a resource that sort of only you have, or very few countries have, you got more leverage because they can't go to many other places, right? So but if you have a resource that they can get anywhere else, you're competing with.
No leverage.
No leverage, right? Having said that, though, even in the current environment, we should be pushing more. We need different kinds of agreements for extracting our resources. And I believe, Roland, that we should simplify the agreements. Because today, I'll give you a real life example. I was on the board of Chevron globally, Chevron Corporation. And Chevron has more engineers, geologists, lawyers than we'll have for the next 100 years, right? And so entering an agreement where we need those expertise to monitor the agreement, we're going to lose. And so we need to rethink the concession agreements so that it's simpler. We can control the resources that come. So if we take iron ore, for example, and again, I'm oversimplifying. It's not as simple as it is. I got you. We should say to Mattel, 10%, we do the math, whatever, 10% of whatever you produce, we want to sell it on the open market. You can take the 90%, 80, whatever the number is. We will sell it on the open market, take the resources, and we Liberians will invest it, however we choose to do it, as opposed to trying to share in equity and monitor this stuff. So we need to just change how we think about all of these things, right? And require that they do local manufacturing, or we do it. So we take the funds. We said Liberians produce rubber today. We will create a factory. Liberians can invest in that factory. The government can invest in that factory. And we do gloves, we do condoms, all this basic rubber stuff for the local market, for the Baton Rouge Union, for ECOWAS. Just new and different thinking. And this is what we have to bring to bear across the continent, but certainly we need to do that in Liberia.
I was having a conversation with one business leader, and she said, we import most of our fish. She says, as opposed to us having a strong fishing industry. She said, which means that we're actually paying for it to come in.
And her argument was to really build a much more self-sustainable country versus being on the end where you're having to pay double or triple for things that are coming in. What can actually be homegrown and built?
Yeah, and that example applies to all of our commodities, and it happens to Africa generally, meaning we import iron ore, export iron ore, and we put finished steel. So we're losing. We got the sea coast.
So you provide the iron ore.
The raw material, yeah.
You provide the iron ore, it goes out, and then you got to pay for it to come back.
Right, as steel. So you're paying more.
As opposed to saying, if you want our iron ore,
we do the steel here. Right.
Yeah, do the steel here, or you're going to give us a huge break on the cost.
Right.
If it comes back.
Yeah, something like that. Or the Ghanaians or the Ivorians, they export the cocoa, and then they buy chocolate. Value is added in Switzerland or wherever, Belgium, and they buy chocolate. Now the Ghanaians are producing chocolate locally, you know, and that sort of stuff.
Without the Ghanaian cocoa, ain't no chocolate.
Right, exactly. and so this example happens, unfortunately, across the continent. This is why, again, we Africans, we gotta take control of this stuff, right? And so, you know, going back to the point where Libera used to be, there used to be a company called the Mesherado Group of Companies.
The what?
Mesherado Group of Companies. Okay. It doesn't exist anymore. That used to have ships, trawlers, used to fish, Liberian company ship, freeze it, ship it to Europe. So kind of finished product, right?
Right.
Freeze it, package it, ship it to Asia, Japan, Europe, North America. And all of that went away with the war, you know, all that sort of stuff. Today, the Chinese got boats on the coast, apparently, taking the fish, the shrimp, and everything, lobsters are going out. And then we kind of buy the frozen stuff.
Like literally, like I've been here all week, and we have not been able to eat shrimp anywhere.
Yeah.
And one person was like, I know it's some shrimp off the coast of Liberia. How the heck we don't have any shrimp here? Yeah. But if you're not catching it and producing it here and selling it here.
Yeah. And some of that is because the shrimp have different spawning seasons. So you should always have it year round, but you have more abundant when they're spawning from when they're not. But yes, shame on us. I mean, the beach is right here, right? The coast. And 350 kilometers of beach. And we're not leveraging it, we're not using it. And the seafood is just leaving the country.
What role do you believe, I mean, first of all, African Americans have an extremely unique relationship with this country. It is one that a lot of people don't even know about, don't even really focus on. There's no other African nation that has the relationship in terms of being founded by people of African descent who came from America. Folks who came from Virginia, from Mississippi, from different
Carolinas,
from different places. Now, obviously, you had issues with that as well in terms of treatment, in terms of essentially them being colonizers, and so you've had that battle politically and economically as well. What role do you want to see African Americans play in terms of partnering or collaborating with Liberia?
We, and I approach this from two perspectives, right? One, to your earlier question, are we fully leveraging the diaspora? And two, are we fully leveraging African Americans? And we're not. And somehow we are threatened by what they could bring. So there's a sort of a zero-sum game mentality that if we allowed it, even the diasporans to come, they will take our jobs, they will take stuff from those people who are here. We let African Americans come, we'll do this. And my point is, we gotta, is 2 + 2 is 5. We gotta change the model. You know, I describe it, Roland, that we got this pepper bush that we're very protective of, but there's no pepper in the pepper bush. So let's put pepper in the pepper bush, and then we can regulate it, we can protect it, right?
It's so like I use an analogy. You're questioning how much I'm gonna make, but right now you're making zero.
Right.
So if I come in and provide you with 100,000 and you're worried about how much I'm making, okay, right now you're getting zero.
Right.
So ain't nobody doing well.
Right.
The question is, how much can we make together?
Exactly. I mean, the other way I describe it, I'd rather have 50% of $10 than 100% of $1. So I'd rather have $5 than $1, right? I mean, right. But somehow our mental model, our model is, no, I want my 100% at $1, right? As opposed to, I'll take 50% of 10. And so what we have to do is we have to be more aggressive in educating African Americans about Liberia's history and that relationship, so that we can attract both the economic, financial resources, but also the intellectual resources of African Americans. We have to do the same with the diasporas. Even today, there's this kind of rift, diaspora Liberians and Liberians. We got to get rid of all of these divisions. We do it even on a tribal basis. We separate ourselves. And all of these things have kept us behind, right? Look, Roland, you don't choose your tribe, right? You don't choose when you're born. You don't choose the religion you're born into. You don't choose your gender. Those things shouldn't give you any advantage or disadvantage over anybody else. But somehow we kind of use these things, the folks in power, they use that to protect. These are all the paradigms we have to break. And African Americans, diaspora Liberians who live in the United States can make a big difference in terms of financial resources, in terms of intellectual capacity, right? Now, they can't come with an arrogant attitude or colonial attitude, because that was part of the problem. So sometimes diasporans, they come here and they think they're holier than thou. That's not going to work. You can't come and you may be better off because of circumstance, but you can't make me feel like, excuse me, you can make me feel right. And sometimes that's the attitude people come with, and that's just not acceptable. But we can manage it. We have to be more secure in ourselves.
Right.
We have to recognize the benefit and value, and we have to aggressively go after it within the context of a strategy. What do we want to achieve with that? How can it help us? What sectors do we want to develop? And then how can it come and help us develop the sector? What is agriculture, education, tourism, infrastructure? We need to be clear about what we want to do, how we want to do it, and there are African Americans and Liberians in all of those sectors that will be willing to come because of the opportunities that the country provides.
Do you think, how does this bicentennial help? This 200 bicentennial celebration, first of all, that's why I'm here, understanding the history. I'm looking at, obviously, the events here. One of the things that I have said to different ministers is, you can have bicentennial celebrations here, but there should be bicentennial celebrations in those American states where folks came from, where you're creating the linkage. In those places where you have significant Liberian populations, in Houston, in Washington, D.C., in Philadelphia, things along those lines. So talk about this bicentennial celebration, and is it truly a nationwide celebration? What do you make of it?
I think we've under-leveraged the bicentennial opportunity significantly. It should have been a much bigger deal across the country. We should have organized it so that even more African Americans should have been made aware to come. I agree with you. We should have plans so that it's reciprocal. We do it in those cities where there are large Liberian communities, because that's how you create the awareness of the linkage between the United States and Liberia. So we've under-leveraged it. And then my other fear, Roland, is that there will be these opening events, and then there'll be nothing. There'll be no follow-up, no follow-through. I don't think they've thought through, so what's the next event? What happens in March? What happens in April? What happens, so on.
Because Ghana really leveraged the year of return.
They did. They really leveraged the year of return. It brought significant financial benefits, a lot more tourists, people coming in, spending hard currency in Ghana. We have not thought about it on that scale. We are not leveraging. And this is the original land of the return.
Right.
Not Ghana, right? And I think we've under-leveraged it. And again, is this what I call small mindset, right? Whether it's the threat, the fear, or the history of where we've come from as a country, but we've under-leveraged it. There's an opportunity. It's not too late, right? To take advantage of it.
You got a whole year.
You got a whole year, right? But I have not heard, maybe it's being worked on, I have not heard what the plans are to leverage it beyond these kind of opening events, which again I think were relatively small and could have been much bigger scale than it was. So I think unless we take advantage of it, we're missing another opportunity which is unfortunate.
You've had to, you're leading the opposition party here. You've been battling the legal system here as well. And so talk about, if you're going to talk about the celebration, and the president talked about unity in the ceremony at Doe Sports Complex, even with political parties battling, no different than the United States, the Democrats and Republicans, how do you work together to achieve that unity, to leverage the bicentennial and build Liberia together, even though you have opposing views?
Yeah, and this is why, Roland, in all of my criticism of the government, I always offer solutions, alternatives. I never just criticize. I mean, I may in a particular interview, but over time, I always offer alternative solutions in the hopes that they will take advantage and use it. They haven't, because at the end of the day, we all suffer or benefit. We're all Liberians. We all have to work together. And so we always offer, even through this conversation, we offer solutions and alternatives in terms of how we can move the country forward. The government is unfortunately using the judiciary to prosecute me. It's a persecution, it's not prosecution, right? And look, in the end, I think we'll prevail because the law is on our side. We did nothing wrong. But President Weah and his government should want to take the lead in seeing how we can collaborate despite our differences politically. That leadership needs to come from him. He's the president of the country. He's the leader of the country, right? And rather than doing that, they're trying to split the opposition, which politically, that's not a bad thing to do, right? But even more, they're trying to persecute me because I think we provide the biggest threat, the biggest contrast. Even my other colleagues in the opposition, Roland, we offer a different set of experiences. We offer a different vision that is radically different from anything anybody offers. I'm like saying we need to change everything, upend the system, not overnight, not all at once, because that's chaos, right? But that's the goal, is to change everything, right? And so I'm a major threat to the establishment, to the few thousands of people that benefit from Liberia and the spoils, and the trickle-down economics, right? And so the government is, what I'm being charged with under Liberian law is a misdemeanor. Yet the chief prosecutor of Liberia, Solicitor General, is leading the persecution. There have been significantly more serious charges of other individuals, criminal charges, never involved, never around. But a misdemeanor charge is leading it in the courts, in the court of public opinion, prosecutorial misconduct, which we'll call him out on, by the way. But it's okay. You know, we're fighting for the soul of Liberia. We're committed to our country. I've been incredibly blessed with different experiences, resources, strong intellect, and I'm going to do everything we can to try to change this country. And we'll take the bullets, we'll take the hits, because it's about Liberia.
And then that was my follow-up, which is really the last question. Look, you're a high-ranking official at Coca-Cola. You were well compensated. You could very easily be using this time to serve on corporate boards, travel the world, relax, do other things, write memoirs, teach, or whatever. Why do this? Why, when that very well could be a much easier life?
Yeah. Every now and then I wonder why as well, but that's only 30 seconds because...
Does your wife want the same thing, like, how's what you doing?
Right, so every now and then for 30 seconds, and then maybe she for 60 seconds. But, but I'm very committed to this country, Roland. I view everything you've described as I've been blessed, and I use that word deliberately, right? And I don't think I was blessed to kind of go lay on the beach and play golf and be on boards. I could be making more money.
I play golf. I love golf. Let's just be clear.
My wife plays golf. Teresa's very good at it.
There you go. All right. So I'll bring my golf clubs next time and see how I play.
Absolutely. I really think I was blessed with these experiences to help the country of my birth, to help Liberia, right? And I'm passionate about it. I believe we can change this country. Liberians are smart people, Roland. I'm not just saying it, I'm biased, but we are. We're industrious, we're resilient, and if we work together, if we think about leadership as most servant leadership, we can change this country, and I'm committed to that. There will be time for the relaxation, to play golf and do this stuff, but for now, is how we can get Liberia back on track. And I use the word we, not I, right? It will take us collectively as a people, right? A few hundred leaders committed to doing this, not just in government, in the church, in the mosque, in civil society, in the private sector. We get a few hundred Liberians who are committed, we can change this country. And I want to be a part of that transformation. And God willing, I want to lead that transformation and to serve the Liberian people so we can achieve what I believe this country has the capacity to achieve. We have the resources, we have to manage it well, and then we will no longer be a rich country and poor people. We'll be a rich country and rich people, and I think that can be achieved. But the obstacles are huge, because human nature, the folks, the men and women today that benefit from the system that is, they are fighting, and they are going to fight, but we're going to fight back.
All right. Alex Cummings, I appreciate it.
Roland, thanks
a lot.
I appreciate it. Great questions. I appreciate it.